The topic tonight is networking. We talked the last time about community mapping, and in our post discussions, we're going to try to give you a bit more help on the mapping, but just remember it's just Ben and me. We actually do have an iPad coming on board, which is awesome. He's going to be starting, but he's not part of the community mapping or networking process. He's doing just education in existing communities. So, but we're happy to have him because that will take more of the workload off of Ben and myself. So we're glad about that. But this evening, as we're presuming that the community mapping part has been completed, that you have your list, and also let me share my screen. You have your list of the institutions. You have your list of the various people in the community from the JNF database. That you have some notes of interest from maybe Southern Jewish Life or a local Midwest Jewish Historical Center. And you have some individual contacts as well as, of course, the list from JNF. And you've gone through that and you have an idea of who's in the community and who you're going to contact. So, and this is an example of how I lay out my notes. I use OneNote, which is a Microsoft product. There's Apple products, there's generic products, but this is how so I've got my outline here of everything that's going to go into an organization, the gatekeeper, the formal leader, the informal leader, and then I'm going to put on the other side what the details are of each institution that I'm contacting. And the same with individuals. Just a reminder to myself, because sometimes if I fill things out, then if I'm looking back to go, oh, what did I forget? And I have to read through my old notes in order to figure out what I missed. Whereas if I keep the outline on one side, and this is just me, then I can often find quicker what I'm looking for that I think I may have missed. But looking right now purely at institutions and wanting to understand who we're calling, it's good to have the website up. Almost any institution these days is going to have a website. So this is Tree of Life Congregation in Columbia, South Carolina. And we already have from our prior research, we know who the rabbi is. We know who the education director is, brotherhood president, sisterhood president. Those are all formal leaders. They've been elected, they have been hired, they get a salary or they have a key to the door and everybody knows, whatever it is, that's a formal leader who has that title or has a paycheck behind them. And informal leaders are going to be names that come up in conversation, but are not staff or elected. And maybe when you talk to Alicia, the office administrator, and she's the gatekeeper, right? She's going to be the one answering the phone, because in any given synagogue, you're not going to have a direct line to the rabbi. Sometimes you do, but still, even if you do, it's not really a good idea to start there. It's a good idea to start with that person who is the official front door of the organization. And in this case, the title is office administrator. And so when you're talking to Alicia, she may bring up Mr. Fox, who has been around forever and knows everybody. And then the same name keeps coming up. And even though he doesn't appear anywhere on the website, he's not mentioned in regard to any committee or any board, Mr. Fox is a person you want to talk to because everybody has mentioned him, and he's definitely one of those informal leaders, somebody who has influence in the community. So that's the kind of thing you're going to be listening for to fill in those informal leaders. And those informal leaders may not even appear on the JNF database, because they may not be involved with us in any meaningful way, but they certainly are in the community. And we're more concerned at this point about the community and what the community says about itself than really about anything else. So as I go to make my first call to that gatekeeper, I'm going to go over here and look about us, and I'm actually just going to go real quick, see who I'm talking to. And I'm talking to Alicia Rosen, and she's from Knoxville. She's from another small community. That is something good to know as I'm talking to her, to find out more about her knowledge of the community and be able to help me come in with JNF vision and message. She graduated from University of Tennessee, Go Vols. She has a Bachelor of Science in Social Work, and she's lived in Haifa. So when we come time to ask her about her Israel experience, we are, so where exactly did you live in Haifa? Did you live near the port? Did you climb Mount Carmel once a month? What did you do in Haifa? And good questions. She's married. She likes board games, and she has a daughter and a sister and a dog. So all good things to know before you get on that phone. So we go back over to our notes, and we're going to call up Alicia Rosen, and we are going to treat her with a respect and a deference as the gatekeeper, that we may not be as formal with her, but of course we're responding to her as well. And to get into how to be your best phone self and how to make a friend through these networking phone calls, I want to turn the program over to my colleague Ginny, and she is going to help us be our best phone self.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. First, I'm Ginny Belofsky, for those that came on a little bit later. My title is Donor Relations Manager. I'm located in Austin, Texas, and I work all over the place, across the country, helping out everyone, and I love it. Okay, sharing screen. Can you see this?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, how to make that call and feel good about it. Who here has made a cold call or a warm call? You've done this before, right? And it can be scary sometimes. And then sometimes it can be amazing, and you make new friends and, finding your groove, working past your fears. When I first started at JNF, and they asked me to make calls, I was like, sure. And I was super nervous, but I picked up the phone and I read the script, line for line, hello, I'm calling on behalf of, Jewish National Fund. My name is Ginny. And then a lot of people would hang up on me. And I thought, that's not working. I'm going to have to be myself, find my own way, and not be afraid to be myself. So everyone has their own style. I take a deep breath. I have all, like what Sam was saying, have all the information in front of you, do a little research. Instead, I changed the way I made my calls, and I'd be like, hi, I'm so glad I caught you. This is Ginny. I think I'm skipping ahead, but this is Ginny. And I'm so glad I caught you. I wanted to invite you to this event or find out more about you. Let me go to the next one. Okay. Perseverance and patience. Don't get discouraged. Sometimes you'll call people and have to leave messages, or people don't answer. They might hang up. And that's okay. We don't know what's going on with their day. It's not personal. And always remember your why. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? It's a great opportunity to give to other people. It's very meaningful what we do here. Do you have any? And feel free to ask questions or chime in. It could be a conversation, not me talking at you. Active and genuine listening. The quickest way to connect with someone is to listen. If you are busy thinking about what you're going to say next, it's impossible to connect with someone. You have to really put on those listening ears and remember to wait. Why am I talking? Do you have any questions? Anything? No? Okay, connection. Focus on your new friend and what is their why. Ask open-ended questions instead of saying, do you like such and such? And they say yes or no. Ask an open-ended questions like, tell me what interests you about whatever it is that you're calling about. And that really helps. Yeah. Am I going too fast? I'm going too fast. No? You okay? Okay. Attention to detail. Remembering the little things goes a long way. I think it's really important to take notes when you're calling people. That way, the next time you call them, or you can tell your fundraiser something that's important to know about the donor or the recipient that you're calling. It means a lot to me when somebody calls me back and says, how was your daughter's bat mitzvah? Or something like that, So take your notes. Confidence and clarity. Connect with the donor as if you were in person. We wouldn't want to call somebody and say, well, you wouldn't talk to somebody in person and say, hi, how are you wouldn't be monotone. You would have inflection and hi, how are you? And smile. Be confident, feel confident because what you're doing is awesome. What we're doing is awesome. empathy and sincerity. So of course, the recipient can't see your face or your body expression, your body language. So like I said before, don't be monotone, talk with expression. And I'm losing my words, Sam. All you have your voices, so make it count. And first impressions do matter. So leave a positive and genuine mark with yours. Bring the energy to the room. Positivity is power and it's contagious. Have you ever been with someone and they're just like having a down day and it just kind of rubs off on you? Like, come to the phone with a smile, speak, from your heart, and try not to just read a script. Having an upbeat attitude helps the recipient feel more comfortable. And gratitude. It's important to show appreciation for your potential donors. After all, they're taking time out of their schedule to talk to you. And of course, that's a given. You all know that already. And thank you. I just rushed through that. I'm so sorry. Do you have any questions? Any questions? No. Was that helpful?
Thank you, Jenny.
That's helpful.
Lots of energy, positive energy.
We get a
Barbara.
copy of that PowerPoint. It was good. It's very good.
Of course, I'm happy to share it. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go on to having that conversation with an individual, whether that person is a formal leader, known informal leader, or just somebody off the list. I want to talk about capturing this information for use. And you will, if you haven't already, you'll get the PDF screenshot of my sample notes here so that you know basically what it looks like. And you can put this on a spreadsheet, you can put it in a Word doc, you can put it in it doesn't have to look exactly like mine. You want to make it your own. Also, the updated agenda that I sent out is not a script, it's an outline. And just as Jenny said, it's often helpful to get rid of the script. You simply want to know the information you're looking for well enough, and having read through that introductory paragraph about the gatekeeper, to be able to just, okay, I've got a basic outline. Where am I going to go? How am I going to move from one point to the other? And that's really one of the ways to get through it, I found, without being stuck to the script. So for example, I picked out somebody that I spoke to a while ago who actually isn't from Columbia, but it still works. And so I pick up the phone and I call Jay, and I've already got his information here in my notes, even though I've got it on the other list. But if I'm looking and I think, okay, I need to call this guy back, where is his information? I've got it in more than one place, which I find helpful. So when I call him, I simply say, hi, Jay, I'm so glad I caught you. That's one of Jenny's nice tricks. And I'm Sam from Jewish National Fund. And then I'm going to go into your Meet Me in 90 summary. Unless they object, I mean, you can ask, do you have time for a 5-minute, 10-minute phone call? You can introduce yourself if you like, but make sure you have that Meet Me in 90 summary down, that you know what you're going to say in the proverbial elevator, on the proverbial phone. Focusing on your why, which should be how you became a Zionist, right? And what brought you to JNF. Those are the two important factors in your 90-second Meet Me in 90 summary. Apologize for the redundancy. And they might have a reaction to that. And oftentimes that reaction is going to be Israel-centered or JNF-centered. And so make notes about that, and it might go in the what do they know about JNF, or it might go in the Israel experience. So you're going to make notes on whichever topic that goes best in, and then when they're done responding to your Meet Me in 90, maybe with their own improvised Meet Me in 90, then you can go back and say, when was the last time you were in Israel? And Mr. Wolf, his first time was the same as his last time, but it was in 2017 to pick up and then travel Israel with his lone soldier son, which, I mean, I got tingles when I thought his first time as an adult was to go see his adult son who had just finished his lone soldier duty. Wow. And I had so many questions for him. go ahead and ask those questions. That will give you an idea of those special moments and memories that you need to know about in order to make a deeper connection with this individual. For Jay, he was still, 5 years later, he didn't realize there were so many Orthodox in Israel. And he was very impressed with the IDF. And interestingly enough, for him, it was such an impression upon him that there were so many Orthodox. He's now very involved in Chabad, as well as his conservative synagogue. So that's a place to keep in mind when you're talking and going through the conversation. So maybe he answered with Israel, and you're gonna come back and ask about, so have you heard about JNF? Did you see any JNF projects when you were in Israel? What do you know about JNF? And of course, you know the answer. Most people are going to say, well, I know about trees. I had a blue box when I was a kid. I've had people say, oh, I actually rode my bike around when I was 7 years old, everybody in the neighborhood collecting, and write down those experiences. For Jay, yeah, all he knew was trees. And he really was genuinely surprised when I told him of our 7 domains of work and how each domain had a number of projects that we were funding. And I take the time here to often say, and when you designate to a special project, that is investment you're making. It is a pass through, and we understand that your money is going there, and we are transparent at JNF. You will know that your designation is going to that project. So that builds a little bit of rapport and confidence in the product as well. So as you're talking about Israel, what they know about JNF, make notes of what project might be of interest. So for him, definitely was special in uniform and heritage preservation, because he talked about going with his son to Masada and to the ammunition factory and various places. So that really struck with me that it's not a lot of people who go there, but I think that would work for him. It's important that you don't end the conversation here, that you covered Israel, you covered JNF, but remember the point of this conversation, the goal is community networking, to find out who in the community is going to be of help raising JNF awareness, education, and fundraising. So you might say, Jay, how long have you been in Colombia? Tell me about the community. You can be as direct as that, or you may have already found something to pick up on and ask about in your previous research or in your conversation. And so like I said, Jay knows a lot of people at both the synagogues and Chabad. And he actually, there's a new rabbi who at the time of this conversation was going to the Reform Synagogue, and he actually had a meeting with him. And I said, oh, would you mind just mentioning to him JNF about how I'm going to be, at the time, I'm going to be there in just a few weeks, and remind him of that. And he said, sure. And it actually was a really good touch for the rabbi to say when I met him, oh yeah, and Jay told me that you had spoken. That's great. That is networking. That's building your connections. If you think of a network as a grid with a lot of dots and lines between them, that is building your network. So as you build those networks, then you again get an idea of what type of community event. And for Jay, he said, yeah, JNF 101 is a must, because few people think that JNF is only trees. Many people don't know that we're more than that. And he said probably special needs or ecology would be a focus domain. And he said definitely not in the summer. Everybody's going away. Probably not until after holy days. But he said, don't ignore us until you're ready to plan an event. And I said, you're right. How can I not? What's the best way for your community to feel as though they're being courted? And I use that specific word often when I'm talking to people. I want them to feel courted. I want them to feel special. I want them to feel as though I am reaching out to them specifically because we can work better together. And so he said, we need some educational materials that are going to be sent to us. We need some things to put out on the tables to hand out, but something that the rabbis can speak to, maybe even in a sermon, or maybe one of our committee heads can present it in their committee meetings. That would be great. And I said, great. So I've got on my calendar send to Jay at this date and this date and this date, and he's been working with me to distribute them out. So that keeps, he's getting buy-in for JNF. He's also then becoming an active participant himself, which is very, very helpful to have that individual on the ground performing as a lay leader, even though they really are not a formal person yet with JNF, but they're stepping into that role, they're wearing the shoes, and people are going to start recognizing them as JNF affiliated. And so they're going to be very helpful to you in the future, especially when you say, who else should I be speaking to in the community? And so the answer from Jay was, well, Joy Grossman, she is our biggest Zionist in Columbia, need to talk to her. And then Dr. and Mrs. Stark, because they've been here forever, they know everyone, they're like fourth generation. And he said, you know, where he is second generation, so he's still new. They're fourth generation, they're almost natives, and they are must for me to talk to. And so not only did we go through his history, Israel, his role in the community, the role of other people in the community, and then I actually had it scheduled, and this is actually from earlier. So my next call to him is scheduled for June 2nd. Even though we've had multiple calls in the past, I just added this. And I have a reminder to myself here. We got a reminder on my calendar. And when I go and make notes about my conversation then with Ms. Grossman and with the Starks, I'm going to then be able to do a search and make a link back. So again, I'm expanding my network in very real ways, in text, in my memory, on my calendar, and in the notes that I'm going to be passing off to whoever needs them. And that's the summary, because some conversations are going to take longer and some are short. Just like Jenny said, you might get on a call and you might have the best lead-in introduction in the world, but it's just not a good time and they're going to hang up. Or you might, like I did today, think I'm making a very brief birthday call. It turns into a 45-minute conversation where now I have a speaking engagement in June in Ashton, Virginia. So you never know where something is going to lead, and you have to be open to those things, as I'm sure you all know. However, I want to present you with that outline, give you the opportunity to consider it and how you might make this process your own. And at that, I will tell you, I am perfectly comfortable with total silence for 30 seconds, or I'm happy to entertain questions. And I only saw 2 smiles.
I
will say something. Well,
Lynn.
I have no problem speaking to people I don't know. I've had some wonderful conversations when I've called to make thank you calls. My single biggest problem is people not answering their phone. And I'm wondering if anybody has any clues what you can do. If they send me an email from whoever is giving me the names, I'll email them and introduce myself and say, I'm going to call you, or you can call me back. I have had 0 people ever call me back. But when I've called a second time, on occasion, someone's picked up the phone, because everybody's afraid of spam calls. So what is a way
Jenny,
around
you've had
this?
good luck with people calling you back.
Yeah, I'm just, hi, it's Ginny, call me back. And I leave my number and they call me back.
And I try to be real upbeat and and I say, I'm calling to these are thank you calls. I'm calling to thank you. Give me a call. Nobody ever calls back. It's unfortunate.
They don't. Yeah.
But I know that, like, if you call a synagogue or you call an organization, those people will pick up because they pick up the phone. So that's a good idea. That's a nice entree. And from there, maybe if they say, this is a good person to talk to, you might say, will you let them know that I'm going to call, so that they will.
That's a very good point, Lynn. There's at least 3 things that you can do. And you said one of them, please let them know that I'm going to be contacting them. And then they'll be expecting you. 2, you could ask for a warm introduction via email. have them send an email to both of you. Or the third, which is the least recommended, but still is good, when you call them, say, Rabbi so-and-so told me I should give you a call because they know you're a Zionist.
Yeah.
And I actually did that last week. And the young lady that I called, she said, I'm so glad that he knows that. So yes, thank you for that good point, Lynn.
I just leave messages. I do my job. Like when we did small, phone calls for you, just put the whole spiel out there. If they call, great. And I also leave my email address.
Good suggestion.
Well, if I email someone, it's got all my contact information on there. My email, who I am, what I do, and what my phone number is.
Is there a procedure that when we have been given information and it's incorrect, or that there has been an updated email address, who do we then contact to make sure that the records are correct?
Ben, can I pass to you?
Yeah, he nodded quickly, so yes.
You can pass to me. The correct answer would be let Sam know. And we have an internal procedure for processing changes to people's records in Salesforce. So he will probably send that information to me and I will make that all roll. I had a question. For this particular project, how do you answer the question, why are you calling? Since this is not a solicitation for money,
Correct.
I'm curious how you would, what you think is the best way to answer that question.
I think Ann had an answer.
Well, one of the things I think is important is just tell them you're not calling for money. This is not a solicitation. You just want to talk to them about Israel, JNF, and their community, because that takes the question of when are you going to ask for money or something. I just had lunch with one of the rabbis at one of the synagogues we belong to. I still haven't figured out why I had lunch with her, because I figured she was asking for money and she didn't, but I don't know why she was meeting with me. And that's really strange. So I think if you're honest and tell them why you're calling, especially if you're not asking for money.
Absolutely. And you can put that, you can add that to your meet me at 9, where you're talking about your why, and you say, and this is actually why I'm calling, just so I can get to know you and how you feel about Israel and your place in our larger Israel-friendly community, or something like that.
I do have a
I
question.
say that, I am so involved with JNF because it means so much in my life. I'd like to share with you a little bit about all that we do. We're so much more than trees.
Great.
So
That's
kind of know
perfect.
you're going to approach them with an educational component. And I agree that, you want to let them know you're not asking for a donation. It's just a hi, how are you? And we're trying to get to know people in your community and spread the word about what we do. And this is, a beginning is to talk to various people in the community.
I do have a question, though, going back to what Lynn actually brought up. She said she sometimes, after she's made a call, she'll email. There's been conversation about whether it's better to email or text before you call or after you call, if you call in, someone you don't know. Does anyone have any feeling of which they do better with at this point?
Yeah, I think that I have better luck if I send an email out ahead of time and then say I'm going to follow up with the phone call, so they already kind of know a little bit. There was something else that I was going to say before that question, of course, in and out of my head, about, I think it's really important when I start off, and I just said, to check their time. I'm sorry, I'm not feeling really good right now, so I'm going to be off in 5 minutes, but I want to say this. Is this a good time? First of all, this is not a solicitation. And is this a good time for you? Because that's really important, because you don't want to start talking and the person is all uptight because it's really not a good time. And then if they say it's really not a good time, then I say, is it okay if I call you back at whatever time is good so we can chat a little bit about Israel? But I think it's important to really ask them ahead of time. And then sometimes they say, no, it's not a good time, not interested. Okay, fine, then I'm not going to waste my time anymore. And many times they say, yeah, I've got 5 minutes, so that's all.
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks.
Go ahead,
Nancy?
Dave.
Since we have this small communities initiative, wouldn't it be a good thing to let people know that that's why we were calling? Because we have learned a lot about small communities and that there's an insular Jewish connection that exists in those small communities that we don't get to see in the larger communities. And we thought that they could share a little with us.
Sure, that's a great question to ask. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
And to pick up on that again, Nancy, you're asking for their help. We're not asking for money. We're asking for their help
Their help.
to understand that community and how best to bring the JNF vision to them.
Yeah, I've always felt, or I've always thought that if I tell somebody why I'm calling and, this is what I'm trying to work on, that there's better interaction.
Well, I'll just throw something out. I was actually in a small community today at their synagogue, Dunedin, Florida. People tend to think of all of Tampa Bay as one big, huge thing, but these different communities really are different, the small ones. And because I was at the synagogue, what I did, and they said to me, do not do an ask. And I said, that's fine. What I did is I talked a little bit about JNF in general and what we did. Then we had a visitor from Israel. We had Gayle, and she spoke at length about Lotem. But before that, I kind of gave an overview of JNF. And the other thing that I made a point of is introducing myself to the rabbi, who I've never met before, and telling him that, is it okay if I give you a call one day? And he said, sure. So, these are the kind of things you can just inadvertently happen and you pick up on.
Right. Cool. Okay, well, if there are no more questions, you've got the documents that I provided. And again, make them your own. That's why Ginny was here, to let us know that we don't have to follow the script, that we should go with our strengths, and that I only gave you an outline and not a script so that you can make it your own and be yourself and allow the people you're speaking to take the lead, because we need to follow them because they know their communities best. Well, thank you very much.